Hey, welcome to We Drink and We Farm Things.
The Minisode edition. Woo!
Well, maybe a minisode, maybe a not so minisode, but we call it a minisode.
Yeah, we try to keep these to like 30 minutes or less, but sometimes Bev and I get a little too excited and enjoy our guests too much, which is a good problem to have, and then it doesn't feel like such a minisode. But we aim to please.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have fun for longer, right?
Yeah, I think so. And if the drinks are flowing, I don't see why we got to stop.
Yeah, that's right. So that's Sam over there.
And that's Bev over there.
And that's Venise from Simple Goodness Sisters over in that corner right there.
Hello!
Woo! I mean, I feel like we could say nobody puts Venise in a corner. I don't know why you put her in a corner, Bev.
I don't know why either. I just couldn't think of another word for here or there or anywhere. And then it was like a Dr. Seuss book in my head and I got lost. Sorry.
But welcome.
That's great. Thank you. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah,
we are
excited
too.
to have you. Yeah. So, before we dive right into the interview, obviously the Simple Goodness Sisters, turns out you and your sister run this, but unfortunately she couldn't join us today. But what's your sister's name?
My sister's name is Belinda. And she is at a wedding show because she is a mobile bartender. And so she has the cutest little vintage camper that she has turned into a mobile bar. So she travels around to different events and she does a ton of weddings. And so she is at a wedding show today that she got invited to.
Well, that is awesome, and I'm glad that she's getting to do something that she seems to enjoy. Obviously, with your company, you guys do some fun things with some cocktails and mocktail kind of recipes, so that's super cool. But we're bummed. Hopefully we get to meet her someday.
Yes, for sure. She was super bummed because she definitely wanted to meet both of you guys and chat about cocktails, her favorite thing to chat about.
So, Sam, what are you drinking over there?
So, I am drinking one of the syrups, Simple Goodness syrups, which is the rhubarb vanilla bean. And I mixed about 2 ounces of that with about 3 ounces of Tito's vodka. And then some of my LaCroix that was still open, that's pineapple and strawberry. And I put it in this fun little tropical looking glass with a straw. And, just to let you guys all know, as soon as I took a sip of it, I texted Bev and said, "Holy shit, this stuff is so good." Like, Bev can take a screenshot and post it in our Facebook group if you don't believe me. But it is pretty delicious for kind of just like throwing something together.
That's awesome. That's exactly what we want it to be. Super easy and delicious.
Yes. So, Bev, what did you make over there?
So I also used the Simple Goodness rhubarb vanilla bean syrup. But what I did was I did 4 ounces of the Dark Horse Sauvignon Blanc and 4 ounces of Sprite. And then I put 3 ounces of the simple syrup in it. And it is so delicious. It's not even funny. Like, I could drink this all day. I probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But I could.
That sounds really, really yummy. I haven't tried that one yet. A little creative. I like it.
So, Venise, what are you drinking over there?
So I am not the bartender of the sister duo. My sister most definitely is, and she usually makes me the drinks, which is really nice. So usually I don't have to think about it. So I went with really, really easy and basic today because my favorite drink of all time, even before we started this whole venture, was just a plain old screwdriver.
Oh.
I am kind of addicted to juice.
Oh,
I'm like a
okay.
child. And so I like to add juice to almost all of my drinks. And so I'm also drinking Tito's vodka today, which is awesome that you're drinking it right along with me.
Fun.
Yeah. And I just made a screwdriver. I like a lot of ice too. So full glass of ice with a shot of vodka, and then I just top it off with a little bit of the orange juice, and then I put half a shot of our new lemon herb simple syrup that we just came out with and
Mm.
is my new addiction. It's so yummy and it adds that kind of citrus component and then it just makes it a little tiny bit sweeter. I also have the sweet tooth, so my sister always thinks my drinks are too sweet and I think hers are not sweet enough. And so juice and simple syrup sounded fantastic to me and it is my all-time favorite. It's also like noon here, so it's like a lovely noon drink for me.
Nice. Well, that sounds super delicious.
It is quite.
So, I wanted to just tell the people a little bit about you guys before we got started. And I pulled this off of your website and I thought it was so fun. I wanted to make sure that we said it. So, the Simple Goodness sisters are actually both sisters. We've covered that, but that's all right. I have to say it again because I think it's super sweet. I would love to go in business with my sister. I don't know. We might fight a little too much sometimes, but
It definitely happens.
yeah. And with their powers combined, they make a mean drink because they are a farmer and a bartender bringing their hashtag happier hour to you in the form of delicious, handcrafted, garden to glass simple syrups. So, yeah, tell us how you got started. What made all of this thing happen?
Yeah, so we kind of always actually struggle with that question. It's probably the hardest question for us to answer because it's like, how did we get started? Like, what do you count as started, right? Was it when we
Yeah.
started this business, or do we take it like way back to when we became sisters? Because so much of our business is centered around the fact that we are sisters. So I am the older sister. I am 4 years older than Belinda, and we grew up very close. But we did not grow up farming, so I think that's a little bit different for a lot of people. A lot of people are generational farmers, and we are not. Our parents, my mom did not have a green thumb, but our nanny did. So then we also like question, okay, do we take it way back to like when Nanny started gardening because she was really our inspiration behind a lot of what we do, along with our dad's. So Nanny is our mom's mom, and Nance, we call her the Nance, is my dad's mom, and she is just like the kick in the pants. So between the two of them, my nanny was this epic gardener, and my paternal grandma was like the hostess with the mostest. You guys, we joke that she will microwave plates so that they're nice and warm for dinner. Like
Oh.
she goes above and beyond. And so, and like Grandma Nancy always has this epic liquor cabinet, right? Like she is always ready for people to come over, and she has a lot of friends that just pop on by, and then they do these cute happy hours. And so we were definitely raised around grandma who farmed and was always out like tending to her garden, and then another one that had all of these great happy hours. And so I think that was a huge inspiration behind where we came from and now what we're doing. And so I tended to lean towards the farming side. So I was always interested in living kind of off the beaten path. And I went to school in Montana. We're here in Washington State, and we were born and raised in Washington State. But went to school in Montana and just kind of knew that I wanted to do some sort of farm venture one day. Whereas Belinda gravitated towards the entertaining side. So she is always cooking and baking. And but after college, we both ended up in commuting to downtown Seattle, and we worked in the tech space. So Belinda was a corporate recruiter for a while, and I worked in HR. And we had really great jobs, but we both lived really pretty far from the city, so we were commuting over an hour. And after a couple years of that, we just figured out that this was not how we wanted to spend our days commuting back and forth. And it was also, we had our first children, and we were just thinking to ourselves, how do we how do we build the lifestyle that we want to build, and but still stay challenged in kind of what we're thinking about and the projects that we're taking on, because I don't think either of us could be full stay-at-home moms. That wasn't something that we both realized that we would be very good at. And so it was kind of how do we meld everything that we like to do. And Belinda saw this gap in the event space because she was a recruiter, and so she was planning a lot of events. She noticed that there's like amazing caterers and amazing like production companies, but there weren't a ton of really cool mobile bars. And especially coming from a recruiting background in a HR space, she also realized that there's sometimes a lot of liability that these companies don't want to take on. And so she was like, her first idea was to do a a cupcake camper. So she's like, I'm going to drive around in this vintage camper and I am going to serve cupcakes. But then she realized that she actually really likes serving booze a lot better.
I mean, I like them both, but
right? And so she's like, somebody should do this. And so she actually decided that she should do it. And so she bought this camper probably about 4 years ago now, and her husband completely renovated it, and it is the cutest little thing. And so her company is the Happy Camper Cocktail Company, and she drives around in her camper and serves cocktails out of her camper. And her really like what she brings to the table, besides just this really adorable camper, and her staff is amazing. They're all really good friends of ours, and so they're really fun. But also, in addition to that, is this garden to glass concept. So she's always been a foodie, always loved gardening herself, and so she wanted to bring that kind of farm to table movement to the bar space. And so she started growing, mint and edible flowers and herbs. But she lives in town, and so she just has this teeny tiny little garden, and so she couldn't grow enough. And then so she started trying to source from other local farms, and oftentimes herbs and edible flowers end up being kind of an afterthought. So people are growing edible flowers because they are good pollinators, but they're not really like marketing them and packaging them and delivering them. So she was reaching out, and she was just having a hard time getting them on a consistent basis. And so at the time, I was growing garlic, and I was growing garlic in addition to working my corporate job still. And I had actually we did this garlic and goats festival every year, and we were growing heirloom garlic while we were both holding down, my husband and I, full-time jobs. And I had my first child. Her name is Dayton, and she is 4 now, but at the time I just had her, and it was September. She's a September baby, and garlic is a fall crop. And so she came, and like right at the same time we were and should have been thinking about planting our garlic and our seed. And I just didn't do it.
oh.
Like as new mom, that fog of being a new mom and like being so overwhelmed, especially with having a newborn. And so all of my seed rotted. And so it's kind of like our, when life gives you lemons make lemonade moment of like, all right, well, I guess we're going to have to figure out something else out. I was kind of done growing garlic too. I wanted a new challenge. And so Belinda kept elbowing me and kind of being like, hey, you should grow herbs and edible flowers for me. And so it was kind of this opportune time where my fields were empty and I was ready for a change anyways. And so I was like, yep, that's what we'll do. We'll just start growing some herbs and edible flowers for Belinda's Happy Camper cocktail business, and we'll go from there. So we did that, and it worked out really well, except Belinda is, only a one-woman show. And so I ended up having a lot of extra herbs and edible flowers. And I was like, well, now what do I do with all of this?
Yeah, because they don't save very well, right? Like you
No, I
can't
mean,
just, yeah. I mean, you could dry them, but they aren't as pretty in the glasses dried. And, yeah.
exactly. And so then it was like, well, so Belinda was doing her first event, her first public event. So she had done some like little private ones. And I was at that first public event, and everyone kept commenting about how fantastic her drinks were, which was no surprise to me because she had been testing drinks on me, and we do these little cute happier hours every Friday, or as many Fridays as we can, and she tests out different drink recipes on me, which I think is fantastic.
Can I come over for that?
Yeah.
For
Right?
real?
Yeah. Next time you're in town.
There we go.
And so she was testing these drinks out, and I was like, yes, these are great. And so she has our first public event. Everyone's like, wow, these are great. And everyone wanted her recipe, right? And so the problem with the recipe is that it's not necessarily easily duplicated. So that first recipe, part of the reason why I sent you guys that rhubarb vanilla is because it had the rhubarb vanilla bean syrup in it. And so we live in an area that is actually one of the biggest producers of fresh rhubarb in the nation. And so, yeah, right down the hill from us is the Sumner Valley, and it's known as the rhubarb pie capital of the world. And rhubarb is a spring crop. But it's really like there's kind of a small little window that rhubarb is really, really good. And so it's like when you're thinking about putting it in a drink or making a drink out of it, you really only have that small window to make it unless you make it and then bottle it, which a lot of people don't. And so people would ask for the recipe, and she would like start to explain it, and you could just see the people's eyes like glaze over and be like, never mind, I'm never doing that. Like that's way too much work to try to like get rhubarb and then put it in a big pot and boil it and make a simple syrup out of it and then get a full vanilla bean and put that in there. And it was like, never mind, I'm just going to go back to what I would normally do. And so I was thinking we should just do this for them. Like we know and we're doing it already, or Belinda's doing it already, and I can grow rhubarb. That's really easy. And so we should grow what we can, and we should make a line of syrups so that people can have drinks that Belinda makes, but anywhere. That was the other problem, is that we have a pretty strong following on Instagram, and so people were like, oh my gosh, I want to come to one of your events, but the camper can only go so far, so it's like unless you get invited to an event that she's serving at, you couldn't really enjoy her drinks before. And so now with being able to put it in a bottle and shipping it to anywhere, people can kind of engage in our farm and in our brand and in our recipes. So that's how we got started.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. I love that story. I'm glad that you just like started at the beginning, because it's fun to like hear where you came from growing up and how like all of the things that we grow up with, we take a little piece from all of them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, our grandmas specifically were super inspirational, and then everything just along the way. It's interesting if you would have told me, and I think most entrepreneurs kind of have this story of like, if you would have told me when I was in high school, like picking my college major, whatever, like that this is where I would end up, I would have told you no way. We were just talking yesterday because we have a younger sister who is going to turn 18 on the 17th of May, actually. And she is thinking about, what she's going to do. And it's so hard because you're like, I don't even have any advice to give you because I'm not doing anything close to what I thought I would be doing. But,
Right. Yeah.
it's all the steps along the way that get you to that where you end up. So,
Yeah. So do you guys grow, or I guess because you're the farmer, do you grow a lot of the ingredients that go in your syrups, or do you outsource from some local farms? How do you get it all together? Because you have so many different flavors now.
Yeah, so our syrups are a little bit different in the fact that a lot of syrups are really a simple syrup, so they're just a sugar and water, a combination, and then they'll infuse like an herb into it. So you'll have a rosemary simple syrup, and it's really just um, rosemary and sugar and water. Ours, we wanted to add an extra layer because we feel like I just wanted to make it very, very easy because again, I am not the bartender, and so I was like, I want, and I think that a lot of other people want something that they can just add a syrup and then maybe a little sparkling water or whatever that add-on is, and then their liquor. Like to add, a berry component to make a really yummy drink that's different can get really involved. And so we decided to combine the herbs with some sort of other flavor. So we have a lemon herb, and then we have a huckleberry spruce tip, we have a marionberry mint, we have a rhubarb vanilla bean, and we have a blueberry lavender, and then a berry sage. So we have 6 different flavors. Um, some of them are sold out because they are hyper seasonal. And so, yeah, we grow as many of the herbs as we can, although our herb production is only in its second real year. And so a lot of the herbs that we grow are perennial herbs. And so I don't, I give them a year to kind of get established. And so everything takes a little bit longer. So like this year, we're really working on adding and increasing our lavender production. So I won't actually use any of the lavender that I'm growing this year but I'll be able to use it next year. Same with the rhubarb. We have increased our rhubarb production significantly, and so, but I'm not going to harvest any of that rhubarb until next year to give it time to get really established. But it is something that I have been very strategic about as a farmer of what my capabilities are and what my land's capabilities are. And so we try to grow as many perennials because then I don't have to plant every year.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's
that's
kind of like
smart.
a lazy way of farming, I guess. But once I get it established, then it just keeps returning for me, which is great. And I can focus on, because there is so much to the business of adding a value added product that I can't spend all of my time in the fields. We also are
Hmm.
doing all of the marketing and the selling and everything else that goes along with a bottled product. And so so it works well. So we are growing as many of the herbs as we can here on the farm. And then when we don't grow it or we're waiting for our plants to become established, we are sourcing as super local as we can. So like I said, the rhubarb is literally from 10 minutes away. I have a lot of farm friends. I am involved in a lot of our local farming organizations, and so when I need something, it's fairly easy for me to find. So our berries, we have a lot of really cool berries that grow well here in the Pacific Northwest, and so our berries for our this last production came from a farm up north of us that they also do fruit wines, and berry wines.
Ooh.
And so they have a ton of blueberries and raspberries for their wines. So I connected with them, and they kind of hand selected berry varieties that they make their wines out of that they thought would be a good addition. And they're so yummy. So yeah, it's really fun. And that's part of what my job is as a farmer is to either grow it or to source it. And Belinda kind of leans
Hmm.
on me to do that. And it's probably my favorite part of the job is connecting with other farmers and talking about their product. And they're also passionate about what they're growing. It's fun to kind of see all the different variety that we have in the state.
That's very cool. So, what is the process between you and Belinda when you want to decide to do a new flavor? How do you guys, is it something like you stumble upon, or is it just her bartender brain that gets really excited and creative?
Yeah, it's definitely her bartender brain. I try to she is the recipe person. So I am the taste tester, and that works perfectly for me. I definitely, I give my input, but because she's out on the road with a mobile bar, it's actually a fantastic way that we get to try our recipes. So when she has an event, she'll play with different syrup combinations and flavor combinations, and then she'll try them out on the road with the camper. So the blueberry lavender actually was one where she had a big event at one of the tech companies, and she made, a series of 4 different cocktails. And so she'll do this a lot. She'll have 4 different cocktails offerings, and then folks will try them and she'll kind of see which ones sell out. And then she's like, okay, that was super popular. We should think about turning this into a syrup. So that was the story behind the blueberry lavender. She sold out of that one like way faster than what she thought she would, and everyone was like raving about it. And so she's like, that needs to be one of our syrup flavors. And so it's really cool because we get to like test the market in this way that I think that a lot of other people wouldn't get to do.
Yeah, it's like your business models just work so interchangeably together. Like one gets to be more successful because of the other and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, you know, I think the hardest thing when you're starting any business, and Belinda would definitely tell you this, is that like you have to think about how you're going to scale, right? And so the problem with the Happy Camper has always been like it can only go so far, right? And the fact that like it's a very localized business model. And so with the launch of the syrups, it was like, this is a way that we can get our product out to people all over the world. And right now, just the nation, but that's good enough for us now.
Well, you got to have a next step to go to, right?
Yeah,
Because then
right.
after it's the whole world. I mean, I guess you
Right.
could send some to like the ISS or something, but
That would be amazing. But yeah, so it's like, how do we take this really local business model and scale it so that we can share it with a wider audience? And so, and that's what we get to do. But then we also get to reverse, and we get to take something that can be shared nationwide and then bring it into this like very, very local market, and people get to enjoy it. And then we get to tell that story through the camper. So it's been a really, really great relationship. And like you said, one company totally benefits off of the other company.
so are you planning on any new flavors coming up soon? Do you have any like sneak peeks you can share with us?
So we actually just dropped our newest flavors. So we started with just 3 flavors, the rhubarb vanilla bean, the huckleberry spruce tip, and the Marionberry mint. And we are actually completely sold out of our Marionberry mint and our huckleberry spruce tip flavor. And so then we decided to launch 3 new flavors. So we have the lemon herb, and the herbs are all completely grown from our farm, and it's amazing. It is like my daily drink. The best way I can describe it is it's a little bit like a ginger beer, but without the ginger. And so, which is actually my least favorite part about ginger beers. And so I'm now kind of addicted to it, and it's bad. I say I'm a little bit like a drug dealer that like smokes her own product, right? Like I just keep like opening bottles, and I'm like, I have to stop. Like, um, and then the berry sage is one of my other favorites. It's like so sweet, and it just tastes like summer. When we were in the kitchen and we were manufacturing it, and we got to take that taste of it. We were like, oh my God, this is so good. So that one is one we're very, very excited about. The strawberries were grown from a farm that's again in the same valley that's just down the road from us. And we have like a very unique strawberry that grows really well here in the Pacific Northwest, and it's like flavor like you wouldn't even believe. And so we like all June when they're in season, we were like going down to the farm and just buying flats, like straight flats, that we could have so that we could get them. And we couldn't get like a big quantity, and so it was like little bit at a time. We kind of stocked the farm stand, but it's incredibly delicious. And then the blueberry lavender is obviously very Pacific Northwest. Blueberries grow really, really well here, as does lavender. And so that one's a very exciting one. And so when we're in the kitchen, we actually go to the kitchen. And even though we do use a co-packer, we're there with them. And so it's like this weird, fun I can't even describe it because it's so much like your baby. So you put so much time and energy into developing the flavor, and then all of our flavors have to be tested. And we use our ag school, which is Washington State University food science program, and they test it and they give you the process that you have to use to produce it. And so there's like almost it was like 6 months that goes into the whole development of each recipe, and then you finally get to like put it in bottles and taste it. And so we're there, and it's so exciting. And with the herbs, it's a little bit tricky because you can like the difference between delicious and not is very, very fine because herbs can get really, really bitter when they're heated like that. And so if you've ever made a simple syrup at home and you've left an herb in your syrup for too long, it gets like this really bitter, gross taste. And so, but we're making our batches are like 70 gallons. And so it's like if you leave it in too long, you've ruined 70 gallons
Oh
of
my
Oh,
product.
gosh.
And
yikes.
so, yeah, it's slightly terrifying. So we like start with our stopwatch and we're like, okay, go, and then we just are constantly tasting it. The blueberry lavender is one of those where if you leave lavender in too long, it starts to taste very soapy. And so
Oh.
you're like, ooh, that's not good. And so that one was a tricky one where we're just like standing there and then we put it in a big kind of bag and then we have to like pull it out really quick so that it doesn't get that soapy flavor. So far we haven't screwed up a batch yet, but I'm sure there will come a time when we do and that will be very sad. But so far we're doing good.
I noticed on your website too that you have some seed kits. Can you explain how those came about and what people can use those for?
Yeah, so we have our seed kits, and this is like one of those big learning curves as a farmer and a gardener and we get questions all the time. So this was a product that came out of just, again, a lot of questions about like, hey, I love what you're doing, and I want to do the same thing. How do you do it? And so those, especially for edible, like herbs are pretty straightforward, right? Like most herbs are edible. That's kind of the definition of an herb. But flowers are hard because flowers, not all flowers are edible. And so we have done a ton of research into what flowers are edible and which ones keep the best, and how do you use the flowers or the herbs in drinks, which there's not a ton of information out there. And so we've had to learn a lot by trial and error. And so we thought, hey, we should share this in a way that is easily digestible for folks. The other thing that was really tricky was sourcing all of our seeds. So it's like, okay, well, this company has these seeds and this one has this variety. And so we have like all of these spreadsheets of where we're getting our seeds from. And we were like, this is also really hard. And so we should make it a little bit easier. And so what we did was we kind of put together these three different curated seed packs. So we have an herb variety, and then we have an edible flower variety, and then we have what we call the exotic seed pack. And so the herbs are obviously very common herbs that people grow, but I think the other thing that people don't think about when they're just starting out is what varieties they should start from a seed and then which ones they should go to like a garden center and actually buy starts. And a lot of seed companies, they'll sell you, for example, mint seed, even though like you should probably never start mint from a seed. It's like really hard and there's a way easier way to do that. And so when we sell our herb seeds, we only sell herbs that we actually do start from a seed. And so you're not getting seeds that are really hard to germinate. And then we also combine in, or we add into that seed pack directions for how we use it in a cocktail. So different ideas for, we call that the craft portion. So how you can craft it into a cocktail. We also give suggestions on how you can muddle because again, like with the herbs and the bitterness, some herbs should just never be muddled. And then some should be really, really lightly muddled. And then some you can like muddle to your heart's content and they'll be fine. So we give examples and tips on how to do that. And then I also provide growing instructions that are kind of go beyond what's on the back of the seed pack, right? And how I grow them here on the farm. So there's a little sheet with each seed pack that goes along with that. So that's our herb one. And then our edible flowers, they're all actual edible flowers that we use. And then we also kind of go into how you can use them as a garnish. The other thing that a lot of people are doing right now is using the petals in ice. So it's really cute. You can freeze petals in ice, but some
Oh.
flowers don't keep their color when you freeze them. They turn brown and look really gross. And so we give you ideas on which ones freeze well and which ones don't. And then
Oh, that's cool.
our exotic one is kind of fun because it's like things that you really would have to get into the nitty gritty of like some cocktail blogs to find. So an example of that are those little tiny adorable there's a bunch of different names for them. We call them cucamelons, but they're
Oh,
cucumbers that
yeah.
look like those watermelons,
Yep.
right? They're so cute. So those are in there. We have butterfly pea, which is it's like a pea plant, but it has blue or bluish purplish flowers, and those are the ones where you can make a like a blue tea, and then when you add a citrus to it and there's a pH change, it actually turns it into pink. So that's a really fun cocktail addition that you can add that a lot of people just aren't thinking about. So that's where that came from. And all of the seeds come from different, like in each pack, there's a couple of different seed manufacturers or seed sellers that we use that we've tested and tried and are the ones that we've had the most success with. So that's where that came from.
That's so cool. And that's so good that you do that with your seeds, that you don't like just sell seeds that really shouldn't be started from seed. Cause like I love to grow things here. I've got a giant garden that I've just been working on. And this is like my first year that it's really going to get going. But I got really excited and I bought like rosemary seeds.
Yep. That's
And
a
it
perfect
turns out
example.
that like you can't really grow rosemary from seed very
Yeah.
well. I mean, I guess some people can because we still have rosemary, but I don't know. I couldn't.
Yeah, completely. That is one where it's not in our seed pack because I don't grow rosemary from a seed. I buy it as starts and plugs. So, yep,
Yeah.
fantastic example. And I always feel bad when people are like, yeah, I'm trying to grow rosemary and they're just not going. And I'm like, well, that's because you're using a seed and it's really hard. I would
Yeah.
be really impressed if you were.
Well, and it's really funny. There were two things I grew from seed this year that everybody told me not to bother, but I did really well with them. And one was asparagus, and the other one is strawberries. So I did get those to
Oh,
go
good.
successful. But I mean, I haven't got to
Congrats.
eaten anything from them yet because they're still babies. But they're
Yes.
alive, and it's been like 3 months. So
That is impressive.
I'm gonna call those both a win right now.
Definitely a win.
So I think we maybe kind of covered, you said at the beginning that you were a fan of the screwdriver. Um, but do you have any other cocktails that you would label as your favorite that are based off of your syrups?
Yeah, so our like fan favorite, and the one that is kind of the OG, so I think it'll always have a soft spot in our heart, is what we call the Genevieve. So that was the drink that I was describing earlier, that at our first event everyone raved about. And so that uses the rhubarb vanilla bean syrup in it, and it is literally just rhubarb vanilla beans, sparkling water, and it or the way that I really like it is a champagne. So you can add a champagne to that, and then gin, and which is surprises I think a lot of people, and it actually surprised me because I didn't think I was a gin drinker until I started combining it with a lot of our syrups. And I think it's
Oh.
because you think of gin, a lot of folks, and you're like, ooh, it's like kind of pine needly and
Yeah,
right? Yeah, you're
exactly.
like it's kind of like a Christmas
Hmm.
tree. um, but and especially out here, we have a lot of botanical gins, so gins that also add a bunch of other different flavors into them besides just the juniper, which gives it that pine needly taste. And when you add the herbs, I think a lot of that herbal component comes out and kind of overshadows the juniper. And so that Genevieve cocktail is still one of my favorites. We also named it after one of our very good friends who was one of the ones that recommended that we try something with a champagne with the rhubarb vanilla bean. And so one of our absolute favorites. We have a recipe card that we sell and people love it. I also really like to do mocktails with them. So that's another reason that we combine the flavors with the herbs is we have kids and we use our syrups in sodas. So we will do like a homemade soda for our kids versus getting something from a can. So we just do like a little bit of
Oh.
our syrup with a sparkling water and they love it. Our kids are both the rhubarb vanilla bean is has that vanilla in it and so like it is hands down their absolute favorite flavor. And I can put that in basically anything and my child will eat it or drink it. So that's the other thing with the syrups is that because they have a berry or another sweet flavor, we use them on ice cream. We use them, the huckleberry spruce tip when we have it. We use that one on pancakes and it's so good.
Ooh.
Milkshakes, it's a great flavoring for milkshake, or we'll do like floats out of them. So a lot of times when we're doing like public fairs and things where we know there's going to be a lot of kids, we'll actually do floats. And people love them because they taste very different than any float or like Italian soda they've ever had, but it's also recognizable for them. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh, all of those sound amazing.
Yeah, in the winter we did snow cones and people were loving our snow cones. So it's really fun to see how people get creative with them. Also, like when you guys were saying your recipes, I love that. That's one of my favorite things is people will send us, Instagram messages or Facebook messages about how they're using them or take pictures of them. And it's really fun. My stepmom actually sent me a picture the other day and she combined it with the egg. And she did French toast. So our syrups, French toast. And I was like,
Oh.
that
Oh my
sounds
gosh.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, so for listeners out there, if you want to figure out how to get a hold of these syrups, they're all available on their website over at simplegoodnesssisters.com. She's got a little link on there. It's shop. And I'll have a link to their shop in the show notes so that you can find the seed kits and the syrups and all of the awesome things that we talked about. And I'll also link to the recipes that we talked about in here because you have a lot of those recipes up on the website as well. So if you heard something that you really want to try, you'll be able to find all of that in the show notes. And then, of course, there will be links to their Facebook page and their Instagram page so that you can follow them on those communities and tell them how you're using their syrups now that you've heard about them here. Yeah, and all that good stuff.
Sweet. Thank you guys.
Thank you for joining us and letting us peek into your world a little bit. I just followed both of your accounts on Instagram because I realized I wasn't. And your feeds are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Instagram goals.
I mean, we've tried a bunch of different things and we're still learning every single day. Instagram is one of those crazy tools that it blows my mind all the time.
Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks for joining us. And listeners, thanks for listening. We had a great time getting to know more about Venise and her sister Belinda and their company, Simple Goodness Syrups.
Well, before we go, I want to also thank Natalie Quist at Cloud Lover Fiber on Instagram for sponsoring this episode's drinks. So thank you. Cheers, lady. We appreciate you. And yeah, I think this was a lot of fun. So thanks again, Venise. And we can't wait to try some more of your guys' product.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was so much fun. And I'm going to keep following you guys and listening to all the other podcasts. I love hearing what other people are doing in the industry and on their farms.
We drink things, we farm things, we drink and farm things.